but the discussion, I don't know, was that what you enjoyed? Most of you guys enjoyed?
Oh, absolutely. The calls are the best part of the show.
Yeah.
Though I get the impression that over the years, the calls, the proportion of Christians who want to call us and argue has just gone down and down and down.
Yeah,
in the old days, it was
things are a lot more. We get too many friendly calls these days.
We're grateful for them.
One kind of call that was particularly great to get, I thought, was once in a while Christians would call in and say, "I love your show. In fact, I've changed my church-going schedule so that I can make sure and catch your show all the way through."
Yeah.
And we would engage them, and that'd be great fun. But I do enjoy taking challenges to atheism, too.
Right. We've all heard Christians try to describe the positions of atheists and just do an incredibly bad job at it.
Martin and I were on, and we had this one call. The guy called up and immediately said, why do you believe in evolution and stuff like that? Don't you think, there could have been other explanations? And we're immediately like, okay, well, just because evolution, assuming it was proved wrong tomorrow, doesn't mean that creationism takes over and God did it all. And he goes, no, I'm not a Christian. I don't believe God did any of this stuff. And so, fast forward about 20 minutes, half an hour, and all of a sudden, humans were. So anyway, that humans were bred here from an alien species. It was actually two different species of aliens. And they lived in Lemuria and Atlantis. They had a great war between the two, which is why we can't find those cities anymore. But there is evidence of them, of course.
Oh, the Nazca lines, I'm sure.
And, of course, all this knowledge, all the higher levels of government and religion all know about this war, but they're suppressing the knowledge. And he talked about the Illuminati.
And you hadn't hung up yet?
And the what is it? The lizard people that Bush is supposed to be some kind of lizard person. Or
yes,
something?
The lizard aliens that you can discover with Photoshop filters.
Exactly, and so it went through. It just railed off. It was one of those like, wow, that's really weird.
If you haven't done a Google search and looked through the conspiracy theories that involve the lizard, the reptilian aliens,
exactly.
Go ahead and waste an afternoon on it, but just one, and then stay the hell away from it. It's some of the craziest stuff you've ever heard. People imagine that we go around and at the dinners we just sit around and say, "Hey, there's no God."
Yeah, there's no God.
Yeah, there isn't a God.
Hey,
I don't believe there's a God either.
I'm so glad we had this
Well,
talk.
that's a good 20 minutes wasted. Let's have another beer.
We don't believe that there's a God, but we do believe in religion. In the sense that we believe that it exists.
It exists.
It is a social phenomenon. And in extreme cases, it can be destructive.
It needs to be stopped.
and I think that, this isn't about what we don't believe per se. This is about something that is very real. There are times when religion gets dangerously out of hand in very particular ways that I think you'll find atheists coming together about and agreeing, okay, this is real and is bad enough that we need to deal with it head on.
And it's important that atheists do this because, you've probably heard the thing about people who live in glass houses shouldn't throw stones. Well, religions are gigantic glass houses. People who are religious understandably, I think, are extremely hesitant to directly criticize the irrational basis of other religious beliefs. And that's because once that conversation starts, their own religion is just as much in danger from criticism of irrational beliefs. So it takes people like atheists to step up when religions get out of control, because the other religions tend not to have very much to say about it. At least not very much intelligent to say about it.
Russell, favorite call?
Jeff, do you remember Creationist Steve?
I do remember Creationist Steve.
Yes.
Creationist Steve would call in week after week with a new, completely random thing that he probably read on Answers in Genesis or something and challenge us with it. We had a hard time dealing with him to the point that some of the hosts and co-hosts had sort of a policy that we brush off everybody who wants to talk about evolution and say, sorry, we're not scientists, we don't want to talk about it. But I found this subject interesting, and I've just done a long series talking about evolution, and one day, I think I nailed Creationist Steve pretty good. I came on prepared with a topic about the thing that he'd called about last week randomly. I took the time to research it deeply, come up with a complete rebuttal of it, and sure enough, he called in, and he was trying to talk about a new topic. And so I said, no, you can't talk about this new topic until you address the fact that I just completely wiped out your argument from last week. Please address that point, and then we will move on and talk about your next topic, which I will continue to address the next time. And I don't remember how that ended, except that he stopped calling in shortly thereafter.
I think that's how it ended.
Yeah.
I think he kept trying to get us to talk about his new week's topic and ignore the fact that we'd just taken out his previous topic. And the fact was that when we brought a counter-argument to him, he couldn't deal with it. He was too busy parroting stuff from these sites.
Yeah. There is a certain extent to which I think some other Christians use our show just as sort of a proving grounds for their whatever, weird arguments they've just picked up, or to test their faith, or whatever nonsense they want to call it. And we're not really here for that. We're not here to be a resource for Christians so they can feel better about themselves.
Although, I mean, if they keep calling in to see how well their argument fares and their argument constantly fails, then maybe they'll keep studying long enough to realize that all of their arguments are going to fail.
Yeah, and that's, early on, I came to understand that the point of discussions on the show is not to convince the caller, but to present to the viewer who is seeing call after call after call of believers who just can't argue their way out of a paper bag and have absolutely no good reason to believe any of the things that they believe. Those people get an impression over time that, maybe these atheists are onto something.
Yeah. And the best thing they could probably do, go ahead.
And I think it's also good, you had mentioned that you tried to get somebody down, and I know, Jeff, you were big on this too, of trying to say, if you fail to back up your point, and we have rebutted it completely, then you should admit that the point is invalid, and then move on to something else.
Yeah. I probably learned that from Jeff.
Because 90% of the time, what people do is say, okay, well, you explained that, but I'm sure it's completely wrong, so let's go on to something new. And basically what happens is next week, they're going to use the exact same argument again because, well, I never said it was wrong. So what you've got to do is actually make them admit, no, okay, this point is not valid. I'll find something new.
Yeah, eventually, I think if you get somebody who's honest and intelligent and willing to discuss this, eventually you get down to a point where the arguments have failed and they just say, well, this is something that I accept on faith.
Yes.
And that's fine. I'd prefer that you didn't because I think that's a bad idea. But at least I can understand it. There's nothing I can say about it. If you've had some personal experience that's convinced you, or if you believe on faith, great. But you have to also admit that that's not relevant to anybody else.